Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for making time this afternoon for today's webinar session entitled Increasing the Student Enrollment in These Challenging Times. To welcome today's attendees and kick off today's session, let's all welcome Mr. Francis Nubla, who is the Edtech Lead Consultant for ITSM.
Hello. Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and hello, everyone. Okay, am I on? All right. Okay. So hello again, everyone, and good afternoon, or morning, or evening, depending on your time zone. My name is Francis, and I am pleased to welcome you all to this virtual conversation and the topic of increasing student enrollment in these challenging times. As the pandemic continues, the future of in-person education remains unclear. In the past year or so, the COVID has forced institutions to rethink their business models to survive in an environment wherein the only solution is to go digital. Despite this limitation, there is a mounting pressure of institutions to meet enrollment goals while competing for the same pool of prospective students that is, in itself, is already declining. Many families are in financial straits, many of them questioning whether higher education is worth the cost given their perception that online and hybrid modalities are of lesser values compared to the, of course, traditional in-person delivery of education. But the reality, ladies and gentlemen, is we need to move forward, even beyond this pandemic. The online and hybrid delivery education is the new norm. And so today, I am excited that the foremost leader in the field of education, technology, and partner of choice of over 400 plus institutions across the globe, CAMU, together with ITSM Corporation in Manila, have invited a panel of leaders in the higher education and industry, experts who will share with us how technology can involve student recruitment, how technology can boost student enrollment, how it can streamline the course of registration processes, how to conduct and protect the integrity of online exam, and the bottom line, how can we, our business, effectively provide a better student experience overall. So without further ado, let me introduce the guest speakers. Our first guest speaker is Mr. Dennis Maxaho. Dennis is the Head and Solutions Architect, ASEAN Emerging Market for Amazon Web Services. He is the expert in infrastructure automation, application development, and software development in the cloud. He helps customers understand best practices around advanced cloud-based solutions and how to migrate existing workloads to the cloud. Our next speaker, or guest speaker, is Mr. Alan Borja. Alan is the ERP Project Executive and IT Services Director for De La Salle University. Okay, and then, sorry, okay. I'm sorry about that. Alan also is the, he did the road mapping for the ERP activities and investment for DLSU. And as the IT Services Director, he led the office that manages the overall IT infrastructure, operating system, assets, and services for the 4 campuses of DLSU. Also joining us is Mr. Alexa Ray Fernando. Alexa is the current first Vice President and former Secretary of the Philippine Association of Engineering School Incorporated. He is the Dean for the College of Engineering of National University of Manila, and he is assisting in the opening of the National University satellite campus offering engineering program across the country. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us in this session. Finally, I am honored to introduce the moderator of today's session, the co-founder and CEO of CAMU, Mr. A.R. Swamy. Since founding CAMU in 2014, Swamy has led the successful transformation of institution in implementing Edtech for academic, admissions, and learning management using industry's best practices. Today, CAMU serves hundreds of educational institutions located in 7 countries with 1.2 million students and counting. So without further ado, I turn you over to A.R. Swamy.
Thank you, Francis. So good afternoon to all the panelists. If I may request you to please turn on your video. The panelists, Alan, Dean Fernando, and Dennis. Can I please request you to turn? Yeah, thank you all. Nice to see you all. Good afternoon to all of you, and good afternoon to our audience who have taken the time to join the session today. Welcome to everyone. So the topic for the day, increasing the student enrollment in these challenging times. It's obviously been a very challenging time for all of us in many ways, and I hope this passes by. But for today's discussion, with specific focus on higher education, we will get an insight from our expert speakers who are in the panel today and have taken the time to do this session. So we'll have the format would be more like a discussion. There'll be topics that I would raise and lead and get the opinion of the panelists. We will have a Q&A session towards the end. I suggest and I request you to type your questions into the Q&A window in the bottom, and we will have the questions lined up. And towards the end of the session, we will take those the questions. And we'll go to the panels. And in between the discussion, there'll also be some polls. So please do watch out. There are about maybe you may get, depending upon how it goes, maybe 6 or 7 different poll questions. And I encourage you to please respond and interact, so we could see your response, and we'll observe your views and also talk about it as well. So that will be the format for the day. Now, things with focus with regards to education, the landscape is very different today compared to 18 months back, and it all started when about 1.7 billion children instantly lost access to education between February, March last year, and that onset has led to a number of changes now. And institutions at various points in time have tried different things. There's a slow shift towards online. Some have rapidly shifted. So people are trying, institutions are trying to find their place in this new landscape. While institutions are doing that, while they are resetting their goals and trying to figure out what's that new business as usual, while that thought process and realignment is going on among institutions, the learner is completely liberated. Okay, it may appear like things are probably stuck, but from the learner's perspective, while there may be many parameters, one important thing to note: they probably are very liberated today. Okay? They can control what they want to learn, when they want to learn, who they want to learn it with. They have all the choice, and at what cost they want to learn. And there's no geographical boundary. It's not like the campus has got to be, it's a 20-minute drive from my house. All of that is sort of gone. I can just learn from whoever, whenever, at whatever, and at my own pace and at the cost that I wish to pay for that. So that's the choice that they are enabled with. I'm sure there are some other constraints that they have as well. So while institutions are trying to figure out how to set their new businesses, how to figure out figuring out the new business as usual, the landscape has changed. Your learners are more liberated. At the same time, there are some other good things to note as well. The number of corporate learners that have surfaced online to go back to school or take courses because they have more time today, or for other reasons, just because they have become irrelevant in their jobs today or in their business today, and they need new skills. So that has forced a number of exponential growth of more learners coming online or coming into the system. So a number of things, good and sometimes challenging things have come into play. So today we'll talk about how do we take advantage of this, try to convert this challenge into an opportunity. And our panelists are here to share their views and share their thoughts and see how we can and let's see how we can benefit from that. So let me start today's discussion with Alan Borja. Alan, could we start your initial views, your thoughts on the topic for today's session, please, Alan?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, wherever you are in this world. Hi, I'm Alan. I'm with the De La Salle University. Now, I don't want to hide behind the bush, but even DLSU, and I assert all schools in the Philippines or even globally are impacted by admissions and enrollment and retention of our students. It's a global phenomena because of the circumstance we are in right now. And sure, we have designed our schools to be brick and mortar, which means we have invested and we have designed our schools to be face to face. All the infrastructures and facilities have been invested and put in place to deliver different modes that are within that design space, within that infrastructure. But I guess the pandemic has actually thrown us or moved us as, I would say, accidental digital transformationalists. We were pushed into transformation into the digital realm. And by digital, I don't mean just digitize the books, convert the books into ebooks. It's not just about converting lectures into videos. It's not just a matter of capturing it in videos and posting it in YouTube. There's so many ways that we can just substitute the way we're delivering things from how we're doing it into a digitized version of it. So that would be a substitution mode. But the digital realm, now I'm talking as a technologist, I'm taking on my technologist hat, gives us an opportunity really to explore new boundaries and new ways of, or new definitions of how learners can actually acquire knowledge, or how we can actually impart and deliver teaching and learning to our students. And that's, as a technologist, that's exciting, right? I do have research on leveraging learner record store. It's effectively like a narrative of what activities a student is performing while in a digital environment. Every activity, such as opening a book, that triggers a certain record store. So you think of it, it's like someone is annotating each action. So it's very, so I'm looking at the perspective of technology actually enables a faculty member, a teacher, to deliver student-centric, really a student-centric mode of learning, in that the interventions that can be brought about by the technology is such that it could be customized and focused to what the student is in right now. But there's a, so I'm trying to balance here, because there's a flip side to that. See, I was talking about the record store and the annotation of each of the activity of a student that's being recorded, and because of that recording, algorithms can be executed to perform or to put in the proper intervention. Did the student perform things correctly or not? What are the right interventions for that? What are the different modes for intervention? Could it be a notification, or could be pushing a video to correct something that's wrong? These are the different modes by which by which interventions can happen. But how I'm describing it, notice that it's like a digital privacy concern, because I'm effectively had like a big brother kind of thing. And so for
Alan,
me,
before we- sorry.
yeah,
So just to connect that to the topic for the day, it's so delivering an outstanding digital learning experience, okay, and making it seamless, interesting, and compelling for the student. Again, a direct impact onto students coming back and enrolling in school. So I think that's the point you're trying to highlight. I think it's very very valid.
Excellent.
So earlier, it would have been the campus facilities, what we can sort of showcase and market, and the ecosystem, the campus may have been significant parameters, but now the ability to offer outstanding digital learning experience becomes one of the key factors. It just got to be taken care of.
Right.
So that's that makes a lot of sense, Alan.
Right. So so yes, I agree with you. Really, we are moved into a digital environment, and that's why I think it's for some of us it may be greenfield for us. It's something new, but consider that really it's not just about digitizing things.
Sure.
It's not just about converting things into a digital version of the environment, but how do we actually maintain students?
Sure. Totally.
It's a spectrum of activities. Actually, it's about
Absolutely.
redesigning how we prepare courses.
Yeah.
It's about instructional design. Yeah.
It's a transformation to a new way of doing things. Dean Fernando, your thoughts on the topic for the day, please.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Alan. No one was actually exempted to the effects of this pandemic. We were affected, of course, physically, health-wise, mentally, psychologically, and for most of us, financially. And it's undeniable that the pandemic has changed the way we live our lives. And in the academic sector, this new normal has allowed us to see not just actually the challenges for us to survive, but also the opportunities for us to thrive in this situation. I'm sure that everyone will agree with me that you realize at some point that there are many things that are better done in this new normal rather than in the old normal. And you were able to realize that because you did something to change the way you were doing things. You adapted to the situation. Most education institutions now are really leveraging on digital solutions, software systems for them to be able to cope with the situation. So rather than waiting for the time when the old normal will come back, I'm not sure if that's going to happen.
Yeah, which you're not very sure.
Yeah, so that also includes enrollment system. It's not only, Alan is correct that it's not only about digitizing things. It's also about, there are a lot of things that may not be digitized, but are very important to the institutions such as the processes, especially your identity as a university or college. So I think just to make it short, maybe this is a reminder for us. Have we really taken this situation to realize something that we have to improve on, and have we done anything that would enable our university or education institution to cope with the situation, and ultimately have we helped our stakeholders, specifically our students and faculty members, to cope with a situation? So maybe yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So we need to. So again, what you're pointing out there is about making it possible for the student to stay motivated, to come back and enroll and continue. So you talked about a number of topics that you, Fernando, like there's a financial burden to a new way of doing things, keep them engaged digitally and in a different mode. So all of those need to. So that's an important aspect of the enrollment. So there are two aspects here. There's how do we increase and get the new learners in, and most importantly, how we don't lose down and we retain our the learners that we already have registered. So both are quite important. You touched upon a number of topics on how do we retain, and that's quite critical, so that the base is still quite sound. So with that, Dennis, your thoughts on the topic for today?
So as a technologist, the situation is actually a challenge for the technology providers and educational technology providers, because at the end of it, I'm a parent and I have kids. The first question I ask is, will my kids have the same value when they do this new normal versus what they were doing before? Right? It should be as good or even better in terms of experience. My kid should be able to learn because I'm spending, this is hard-earned money, and I would want it to be worth it. I take that as a challenge, right? So we need to be innovative, and I feel, as you've mentioned, it's going to be exciting. But two things, technology is one, but as mentioned by Sir Alan and Sir Alexa Ray, it's the mindset. Are we willing to take on that new normal?
Yeah, absolutely. So the very important point there, me also being a parent. Now, what are you paying for? Earlier, we paid for that campus ecosystem, that cultural experience. Okay. Now, what are we actually paying for, and are we convinced to pay for? That's quite important. And how do we convince, and how do we? It's bringing in this way of doing things is got a lot of benefits too. But how do we position it? So let's talk about it. I got a lot more discussion points to tease out these aspects. So we will definitely come back to you on this in the subsequent rounds. Dennis, a very good point there. Alan, very specific question here. Today, the context is about how do we increase, get more learners, retain the existing learners. All around that. Very specific question. The physicality of the campus is less relevant today. Okay, so earlier we did so many things around the campus. The physicality is less relevant. Can institutions go beyond their geographical reach? That just doesn't mean I would just advertise and get students for 20,000 miles away just like that. That ain't happening. So what is the practicality? If your strength was the campus, and now you need to compete with things that are not going to be a strength anymore. You're going to be able to reach students in multiple geographies. Is that practically possible? How relevant is that? Your thoughts on that? The ability to do that, to go to a wider reach of learners in a wider geographical region. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that is indeed possible. But going digital and going to the internet is a means to be global. And so I'm aligned with what Professor Alex has mentioned earlier. It's about the identity and the image of the university or school. Are we ready to actually go beyond our comfort zone and be ready to spread out our wings in a global market? Do we have the right competency, or does our faculty and our facility as well? When I say facility, our network and our systems and our software applications, can they scale up to actually allow for the deluge of new markets? So it is possible.
Alan, just apologies for interrupting you there. What aspects, just a couple of examples, what should you do to become more relevant in a wider geography, not just the students who are around your campus? Just a couple of examples. What should you consider doing right now to be able to be relevant to a wider geography?
In the university, we are exploring, we are redesigning courses to allow for a continuous professional development. So these are different modes that are available already. We're just translating it into a digital space.
Absolutely. Making it more, it's not just about some online meetings and just get on with it. It's not about that, right? So it is a very important part, your curriculum structure. So we need to sort of redesign the curriculum. Who are our learners? What do they want? What is their motivation? You start right there, but then you can't sort of wait for this transformation to take years and years. So and you can break it down to what are my immediate benefits, but with a long-term thinking of a new curriculum structure, what are my immediate benefits? What are my goals for the next 6 months? So you're absolutely right. So that's a very good, very important aspect. looking at your curriculum structure and how can you take it digital. Any other thoughts you'd like to share on that, Alan? Any other specific examples like that? That was a really good example on you need to go to the grassroots, ground up. You need
Yeah. Well, see, I'm coming from the perspective of also being knowledgeable of the capability of the university. Yeah, what are the core strengths of the university that we know we can scale up?
Sure.
And I think that's something that we as schools in this forum here need to really look into. What are our capabilities? What are the people, process, and tools that we already have that we can say that these are our capability that can mature and scale up if we want to, especially if it's in a digital environment.
Sure. Excellent. Yeah. Well said, Alan. So that's on the idea is to attract more learners and increase. Dean Fernando, another very specific question, the other side of the coin. What are institutions doing about retaining students? What are the challenges? I'm sure you have a block of students who dropped out.
Yeah.
What are the institutions doing about it, and what should we continuously do about it?
Okay. There are many aspects when you talk about retaining students or student retention. I'd like to give an observation. Before the pandemic, students are just concerned about how soon will they finish their program, how soon will they start working. But now we observe that the concerns and complaints of the students are focused on their learning experience in the digital world. They're asking themselves if they were really able to learn something from the course, if they are really getting what they paid for. So I realized that one of the main factor, whether it's actually before, pre or post pandemic, actually education institutions should always focus on the learning experience of the students. That's what they're paying for, and that's our main reason for existence. And since we are divided by time and space because of this pandemic, and since learning has still needs to take place, then technology has to be in place. It's very important that technology is there because it will be the enabler of this learning experience. I think I'm sure that most of the education institutions, specifically engineering education institutions, have been, investing more on technology starting when the pandemic started, because we are very, let's say, hands-on. We have laboratories, we have OJTs and so on and so forth, and we have to be able to make sure that we still give equivalent learning experience without asking the students to go to the campus. So technology is very important. But Swami, when you introduce technology, that will also result to more, should I say, factors. Like when you have a new technology, then you have to train your students, your faculty, how to use the technology, and the delivery of courses, like what Alan said, is totally new for most of the conventional colleges and universities, because faculty members need to know how to use technology, and they have to be trained or retrained for on pedagogy that would suit or that would be useful with the current setup and technology. But I'd like to add that one of the also main struggle when you are introducing technology, really, especially in the Philippines, is the internet connectivity. So that's why universities and colleges have their own way on how they could at least alleviate that concern of the students. Some of the like for us at NU, we actually gave out our routers and data allowance to students. I'm sure that other universities did that as well. But those are the things that that have been happening right now. when it comes to making sure that we still see our students next term. We want to make sure that we provide what they need in terms of the learning experience that they paid for. So that's why we are heavy on technology and how to enable technology.
So obviously, technology has become like a the go-to medium. That's quite quite obvious, and that's apart from that, are there anything else that we need to consider? The physical, the challenges at home, any other restructuring, any other ways of keeping the students motivated. Of course, the medium of delivery has got to be tech. There's no doubt about that. Anything else that you can think of? But we have more questions coming up. But if there's any quick thoughts you can share now.
Well, I focus on learning experience, Swami, but I think next in line is actually education services. For example, since we are so restrained from doing the things that we've been doing before, we wanted the things the processes that we have at the university will make it easier for the students or their parents or their families in making sure, or sorry, even in enrollment. We want to make sure that the students and their parents have good user experience of our system.
Sure.
I think that also matters because as I said earlier, we've been into psychological and emotional mental roller coaster. We don't want to add to that stress, and we wanted to make sure that technology will make the processes easier for the students and the parents. And I see that as an advantage for education institution if they have flawless system using technology.
Sure. We'll come to other aspects on the situation at home and there are other stress factors and stuff. There are points I'd like to cover which will come up later in the discussion. So Dennis, what are your, so we talked quite a bit about the adoption of tech. So in your view, how has it been, the usage of cloud applications in the last 12 months? And you must be seeing an impact of what they're talking about in its consumption and the trends.
Yeah.
And share your views, please.
Yeah, so I guess the last 12 months pretty much encompasses the time that we were in lockdown and the pandemic was there, right? So I would echo what was mentioned earlier, that the adoption was more of forced or pushed. I think it was mentioned earlier. So in my perspective, a lot of educational institutions suddenly turned into technology and the adoption actually spiked. There's a surge of people moving to the cloud, trying to migrate to the cloud. But my view was, since it was forced and pushed, that didn't leave enough time for for the institutions to understand how is it really to maximize the cloud. So my view, yes, the surge is there, but it's not as how shall I say this, as good as we would want it to be. We are still in the early stages. It's a journey. We will be going through optimization or making sure everything is working fine, but that's a long process. So we are at the tip, at the first part of our journey, and that has to be something that I would want to emphasize. It's going to be a long journey for sure. The second is mentioned about luxury and necessity. Internet connection was mentioned earlier. I remember that time where car is a luxury and now it's a necessity. We are going through the same phase. Internet connectivity suddenly is, it's not like luxury anymore. We really need it. So those are the things that I have noticed.
The interesting observation, what you say, while we've heard the other, Alan and Dean Fernando talk about significant adoption, is saying it's not as much as it's anticipated. I think it's the tip of the iceberg, and there's so much more to do in probably
Definitely.
the education, compared to all of the other verticals like banking and fintech and all. There's a lot to catch up here. There's a lot of work to do, which would be quite exciting. And that's
Definitely.
see what your that pattern. Now let's have our Cindy. Can you display the first poll question, please? So let me read out the poll question for the audience. What are the main reasons for student dropout during the pandemic? So the options are, there are 4 options there. So go ahead and pick your options. So the option 1 is distracted and lacks the urge to move ahead. Financial burden. The second option, does not find online learning effective, and does not. So it's pretty much 3 options there. Yeah. Can we have the results for that? Yeah. All right. So we see that financial burden. What I expected. So while we do so many things, the truth is things have changed. There's a significant financial burden. So we'll talk about number of. So there's a bit of a significant change. There's remodeling. The business models are changing and stuff. So we will come to those topics. What some institutions can consider, but this is not going to be like a solution, but that's something need to be looked at culturally. Every institution, where you stand in that region, what kind of learners you have, and what the financial challenges are. Some actions need to be taken specifically, must be taken. The same model, highly unlikely that will just sustain as is. So that's got to be certainly considered. So that is quite interesting, but quite anticipated that result. So we'll just go with the next set of round of discussions there. Alan, is a very specific point again, probably a very short question. For getting corporate, are you seeing trends where corporate learners coming into school, coming back to school for short courses, micro courses, macro courses? How is that going? Is it practically possible to? Can we refactor the existing resources, material, teaching resources to address that market? So we got to go find the learners somewhere. So what trends are you seeing in that?
Yeah, I will be counterintuitive here. See, it's been more than a decade that we have massive open online courses already. But it has shown, data has shown that it's not actually revolutionizing education. So what I'm saying here is that there are lots of learning points with respect to MOOCs. If we are to use that model in terms of getting new markets in the space of micro courses and micro degrees, right, for the continuing professional development courses. But at the end of the day, it really is about getting the certification. Yeah. So the university still holds that gatekeeping role of certifying knowledge has been acquired, competence has been acquired.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
And so I think that's something that the schools would really have to strengthen with respect to the image, the equity by which they produce their outputs in the space of continuing education or professional development.
So my point there is, if you look at all those platforms, online platforms, tech platforms, right? Where is that material coming from? Where are those resources coming from? They're coming from the institutions, right? So the institutions are, the institutions face this challenge, but it's the resources of the institutions that have are addressing it through the other medium. So why not the institutions that have traditionally been the gatekeeper that issue that badge to the learner might as well take a stronger position in that space compared to the pure play tech platforms. So there's another point to look at, another aspect that institutions can look at and become that with all the tech being put in place, which we discussed in the last few minutes. This model should be possible to, and it's proven that it's sort of happening. So the universities and colleges can do it themselves. That's a good point, Alan. The next point for Dean Ferrando. How can institutions bridge that gap? Okay, we have the expertise to teach students in a particular age group, out of high school. That's been the bread and butter. Now, if there are corporate learners coming in, what's the skill gap? What do institutions need to address? How could you address that space?
Yeah. Well, I think this is a very good opportunity for education institutions to come in to provide, certifications, trainings. I think most of the motivation of corporate learners are voluntary learning, but these kinds of corporate learners, they don't just usually do it for their own interest, but actually this is a form of, or in terms of, or a matter of requirement, in the company. Yeah, because that usually is important for appraisal, for promotion, and even for those who are licensed professional, they need this trainings for them to get points for renewal of their license. So
Very
I
good point.
think,
Look at the trends, what the industry demands, what are the gaps, what are the certifications. Now, if there are certain jobs you want to take up, there are certain certificates you're expected to have. So then you can start from that analysis, and a lot of data available, lot of data in various industries. What certifications, what are the, and you can create new markets there as well, right? So that's where we can start from. And so if we start from there, we can create that market rather than just opportunities and hope for people to come in. I think you touched upon the nerve center on that. The jobs have certain requirements and can be.
Yeah.
Very, very good point, Dean Fernando. Dennis, now, how can these? So you heard about a number of these challenges and stuff. From your point of view, you talked about you're not seeing the cloud consumption as much as you expected it, given that everything is pretty much work from home, and you still don't see enough consumption.
Right.
So obviously, this is the challenge. How would you think, from your point of view, tech background, how do you think this challenge can be converted to an opportunity? What are your thoughts? What do you discuss in your day-to-day work?
So yeah, since most of the educational institutions are forced into adopting technology anyway, so I believe that should be used to the advantage. I'll give an example. I think it was mentioned earlier that we were restricted to the brick and mortar campuses. So but since that is not totally feasible right now, so we have opted for online education, for example, right? But once you do that, you actually open up on a couple of things. One, before you were limited by the number of students that you can house, let's say in the campus. But now, since you went online, the globalization actually comes into play, right? Suddenly, there's this opportunity that you would have better reach apart from those that can, let's say, commute to the campus. Now it's just a click away. So that's one opportunity that can be converted into a challenge, right? And how do cloud solutions actually help in addressing that one? It's hard enough for educators to focus on educating students, right? I know that's a skill in itself. I don't think I have the skill for that one. And it's doubly hard if you try to do IT, fixing servers, troubleshooting networks, right? So cloud providers actually help in that it takes away the undifferentiated heavy lifting, let them take care of that one, and then the educators can focus on providing, or doing the mission that they have. So that's my view on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there are lots of earlier institutions were probably used to making own systems, develop different tools for different things out of excitement and stuff. But now, it probably is better to go rent what you like from the cloud, use it for that purpose. Then things change within 6 months. Rent something else and keep that it certainly brings that benefit. And that's,
definitely,
certainly that's something you can benefit from. Yeah. Can we, Cindy? Can we have the second poll question, please? Yeah, thank you. Let me read out the question for the audience again. What is the biggest challenge institutions face with online learning? Again, in relation to the topic, it's quite important we retain the students and offer a good digital experience. In that context, we have poll question number 2. Teaching professors becoming effective on digital platform. These are challenges. You can pick there are 4 options. First option I've just read out. Second one, inability to create digitally effective content. Students lack attention while online. Cultural challenges for online learning. Okay, so any of these choices could result in dropouts or slowness in going to school, or being very thin in the engagement with the campus. So pick your choices, please. Right, can we have the answers? Yeah, students lack attention online. So I've posted this in multiple webinars I've done. There's something to think about over here. Is it their job to be attentive, or is it our job to make it interesting for them? There's something to think about. Okay, but that's going to be like, we've got to solve that problem, because they're going to otherwise be distracted all the time. So how are we going to gamify things? How are we going to make it interesting? Just can't ignore that. So I'm not going to talk further about that. It's quite obvious, but there's something for all of us to think about. So we'll continue with another round of discussions here. Alan, we covered quite a bit on tech. I'm going to skip, go to a topic on something around the other aspects, right? Academic stress and the psychosocial impact. What are you seeing? What trends are you seeing? Can you share your thoughts on that, please? Students undergoing academic stress and any psychosocial impact that they have today.
Yeah, I'm guessing all of us are actually
Yeah, all of us, yeah, absolutely.
are impacted by this. I mean, the expectation is we're not going anywhere, so why are you not in the meeting? Right, because we're all in our homes. So yes, stress in this environment has, I guess, spiked. So there's lots of tactical interventions as well that the university has adopted. We have decided that Fridays no Zoom meetings happen. So there are these different kinds of decisions and choice by the university.
Fridays, no Zoom meetings, is it?
Right.
Nice.
Yeah. So really, it also dwells in the space of mental well-being and well-being in general. And so I also take that as an opportunity also for the university, especially if we are pushing the technology, really adoption of technology, that sometimes it's good to have a digital diet or digital nutrition. Digital diet means we actually, have some time off, right? Control our consumption of the digital space, or in the space of digital nutrition. We choose what we eat. In other words, we choose the content that we actually are beneficial or empowering to us, rather than, going to the back alleys of the internet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, interesting. Right? I couldn't have thought of these terms, digital diet and digital nutrition. Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, and this is counterintuitive again for me as someone who's purveying technology, that really sometimes time off is good. And so we are mindful of that, and these are some of the things we are putting in place.
Yeah, I think that pacing out and doing more stuff, self-learning, do it yourself. Come back and do and review it later, rather than just be engaged digitally all the time. So you just need to detox digitally in order to allow for to de-stress there. Absolutely.
Right.
So I think many institutions probably have recalibrated a bit this year compared to last year. But last year was quite very painful. But probably I hopefully it's getting better and will get much better soon. So yeah, good points there, Alan. The digital diet and digital nutrition. Dean Fernando, other aspects. I know you have it's quite close to your heart. Accreditations and modern learning methodologies and pedagogical transformation. Now, how do these aspects come into play? Would these badges and accreditations help position yourself digitally, right? Your thoughts on that, please. And you've been doing this for a long time, and how has it changed now? And how important is it today?
Yeah. Well, accreditation, even before pandemic, this really matters, you know. The parents, the students specifically, especially the parents, they are getting more aware of what accreditation means, you know. And so when they look for universities or colleges, they would want to know whether a university is accredited locally and internationally, because they wanted to make sure that the money that they pay is actually worth it. So I think accreditation is very important, and this is something that universities and colleges should not, you know, forget when it comes to establishing again your identity, especially the quality that you provide, because this is a testament that you really are offering or delivering quality education. In terms of badges or certification, I think that also helps. For example, NU is actually a showcase school of one of the leading technology platform. So it helped us, you know, at least tell the students and the parents that yes, you're having you might be in doubt that we may not be able to deliver it digitally, but here we have a badge saying that we can actually deliver teaching and learning in this new normal. So in a way that would give them confidence that yes, this school can actually do it. Also, you know, parents now are. I'm talking about parents because in our recent tracer study, it's still the parents who decide where the students are going to be, you know, admitted or enrolled. So that's why we also we give importance to the preference of the parents. But anyway, in speaking of badges, it's also important that universities and colleges continue to add value to the program, to the undergraduate or graduate program, by maybe partnering with the industry or certification bodies, telling that when you finish this program, then your children will have a specific certification on certain skills. So that's, I think that's very important, because that will, you know, increase the interest of the stakeholders, specifically your customers, who are the parents and the students.
Sure. Well said, Dean Fernando. I know you're a very big promoter of, you know, outcome-based education and those kind of concepts and stuff, which is quite important for, you know, accreditations.
Yeah.
Are there any, so now early probably institutions are, you know, were tied down to statutory accreditations, but now should they be looking at, because the concepts are going to be quite similar. You're not going to be doing a whole lot of, you know, additional work. Be more relevant, you know, wider geography, where people look at it. It's relevant even outside your geographical region. Is that something that institutions should think about? Would that be important today?
Well, that's part of, you know, many decades ago, we've been talking about globalization and internationalization. And I think it's very, even if we are in this pandemic, it still applies. You have to be able to give global value, or give global exposure to your program, especially if it's part of your strategic, you know, plan of the university. So I think it's still connected with, you know, accreditation, because it's hard for you to say that we are globally, you know, we're a global university or international university without someone telling or certifying that. So that's also connected to what you said, OBE, because that's one of the main criteria in most of the international accrediting bodies, specifically those that are into computing, engineering, and technology. So yeah, it's still very important, and I think again, you know, Swami, it depends on the vision of the university, of the intention of the university. We can't force everyone to be global, but if it is your part of your vision or part of your strategic plan, then you really have to get accreditation, specifically international accreditation. Yeah.
The intent is just to trigger the thoughts and ideas, and whatever is relevant to to whoever, that would make sense. So absolutely, thanks. Yeah, and thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. That's great. Dennis, now from a cloud perspective, or from a tech perspective or cloud perspective, what strategies are in place from your perspective for education organizations? What can they very specific, I'm asking, it's a very specific question, specific offers and things, any specific offers that education institutions can benefit from, at least in your part of the world.
Right. So things that, like in my particular case, AWS offers for educational institutions. We do have a couple of programs. We call it AWS Educate and AWS Academy. Earlier, we were discussing that the mindset is very important. People needs to understand cloud for them to realize the value. So these programs, in fact, help students get immersed to the cloud technologies, and at the same time, it also provides curriculum or content that can be used so that the students and the facilitators or the educators would have a better idea of how to leverage cloud better. So those are the things that we offer, and we also offer activities, hackathons. That's something that we are open to do. So we just need to have that conversation.
We sort of partner with education institutions to bring those programs in at this point in time. So everyone working from home and being digital, it's the adoption of these programs probably naturally fits in.
Yes, that is correct.
Absolutely. So that's something we can look at and bring another dimension into the learning process.
Right? Yeah.
Great. Cindy, can we have poll question number 3, please? Right. So let me read that out for the audience. Poll question number 3: is it possible for higher ed institutions to compete with digital learning platforms? So what I mean here is the pure play tech platforms. Alan did talk about that earlier. Is it possible? Is it not possible? Yes, no, and can't say. And this is going to be an important aspect. So the future is going to be an aspect of this is going to be there in the future. So what do we think? What do you think about it? As of now, what is your opinion? So choose your options, please. So can we have that answer? Yeah, please. Can we have the answers, please? Yes, yeah, absolutely. Glad to see that response. Earlier, I'm really delighted to see that, because earlier it was thought 1 year back it was almost like institutions being left behind, and all the resources of the institutions are contributing material, contributing human resources into digital platforms, but they already are available to the institutions. So absolutely, that's got to be a way forward, and definitely the institutions being that gatekeeper, that certifying authority, must take advantage of that. Resources are already available in the institutions. Now the tech is being put in place. So absolutely, that's the I personally feel that's the way forward, and we should go very high on that. We go into another round of discussions here. Maybe we may have time for one, maybe 2 more rounds. We'll keep it quite precise and try to squeeze in 2 rounds of discussions. So just request the panelists to be precise. I'd like to get in 2 more rounds here, please. This is a question for Alan. Some of the institutions I'm seeing this are going for shorter terms of study, not the 6 months or the 4 months, but shorter terms of study. So the students engage a little lesser, less financial burden, less commitment, and probably tend to engage in that model a bit better. Any thoughts, reactions? Have you seen this? What do you feel about it?
I think my university did not really take that on. See, subjects and courses that or programs that we offer, we report to CHED, to DepEd, and to Legal Education Board. These are the different regulatory bodies. So there's an alignment to that. And so, yeah, but we make accommodations with respect to, grades and all of that to alleviate their concerns on continuing on with the programs that they're in.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so you're addressing it slightly differently, but we have come across this in multiple countries where the regulatory bodies, there's no change. You still report it at that point in time.
Right.
Then you complete a portion of your learning, you pay for that, you go through some assessments, and then you pass, right? The ability to pause and engage in a slightly less uh, reducing the engagement, because for whatever reasons, it could be financial burden, not a conducive environment at home, you're not in a position to attend classes for 5-6 hours a day, so it sort of just reduce that. But from a regulatory authority perspective, no difference. If you just keep
Right.
Going. So I've just seen this quite more often than I expected to. So just wondering.
I see. But in my context, we're fortunate that the students, majority of the students want to keep on and stay on. So that phenomena is not happening to us, I guess.
Right. So yeah, it's not uniform to it's not a universal phenomenon. It just exists in pockets, and maybe that's a way to sort of address that particular concern of students. Right. So, but that's good to know that it's you don't have that problem, and hopefully this problem minimizes in the days to come. Right?
Yeah, and I think there are other means to approach if that's a real concern. We now are exploring different modes by which teaching and learning can be delivered. Asynchronous, synchronous, right? Or they have this new word of bisynchronous. So there are different ways by which we can provide coping mechanisms for a student to really fulfill within a certain timeline.
So other ways of minimizing the engagement and going with their abilities, current abilities, right? Absolutely.
So there is a question from the audience wanting to find out. I would like to know specific ways of increasing enrollment in the countryside. Would you like to take that question?
Any of the panelists, Dean Fernando, would you like to take that question? So more in the in the provinces, how would what strategies can be put in place to bring the learners back?
Oh, that's a wonderful question, actually. And I don't have an answer for it. but really, for me, it's an orchestration from government, right? Right. The push of government to empower people in the countryside, to put in the infrastructure there, both internet connectivity and schools. For DLSU's perspective, I'm mighty happy that part of the thrust of the university is really towards scholarship. So that's one way to alleviate that concern of students or kids who would have wanted to have education, quality education at that, would have an opportunity to be enrolled. And so, yeah. But I don't have a single answer. It's a complex problem, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah, my views on that. It's just like how the mobile phones got adopted. It all just doesn't happen one day, right? So people are far more technically connected, technologically connected today than it was last year. But it's obviously not 100% there to probably roll out strategies yet. But I'm sure that there could be many strategies. There are institutions now, opening up like satellite campuses and regions. You don't have to have a massive investment in a campus. But then the benefit of the satellite campuses, you're able to tap into certain regions, and it's got a very different focus. They are not the classrooms. So it's more of the ways to engage with institutions. So this, while the challenge there is the digital connectedness is still slightly behind in order to roll out strategies. So there could be got to break down the problem, many strategies, and things are definitely rapidly catching up, more from an infrastructure, from a government, a country perspective, to the individuals doing certain things by themselves. upgrading themselves. So it's a slightly longer road, but it's definitely a path that we'll have to go forward on. But totally acknowledge that it's a bit behind today.
Swami, Dean, I think certainly Dean wants to also add his viewpoints on this as well. And I have another question. Is marketing still relevant for schools? So probably you can take the question as well.
Did you want to respond to the previous question? Do you have anything to say on the previous question? The one on the enrollment?
Actually, that's really a challenge for every school, enrollment. For example, for our school, we have, our students are not just coming from Manila. They're coming from provinces, But the question is, why are these students from province go to Manila just to study the programs? I don't know why. So maybe the reason why I'm putting it in that context, because for you to be able to increase your enrollment in the countryside, I think the most important thing is you have to be able to establish, again, I'm going back to my point earlier, you have to establish your identity. Who are you? What do you offer? What is the vision of your school? What is the mission of your school? Because if these things are not clear to your customers, they would really, take the time to fly to, further location just to get what they want, what they need as a program. So maybe you have to ask yourself also, am I clear about the identity of my school? Am I clear about the programs that I offer? And also, am I accessible to the students? Are the information available to the students? And that will also, go back to technology. Is the presence of your school online? Is it a wider range already or not? Because right now, this connects to the other question. Marketing still matters. It still matters. Even if we are on digital space now, actually, marketing was accelerated because of digital space.
Absolutely.
So it's up to you how you will use that digital space. But as for my university, we're so I think every day, or at least thrice a day, we have posts in Facebook, in Twitter. So that in a way, telling the prospective students or parents, hey, we are a national university and we exist, and we just don't exist in Manila. We also exist in other parts of the country. So that also applies to you for sure. So going back, please go back, establish your identity, and use the digital space to tell the stakeholders that you're there and that you are relevant for their needs. Thank you.
In my view, I think it's far more important to market today, because it's very, very, very noisy and it's cluttered, the messages, and a lot of confusion on what things mean. So we got to be really clear about what we mean, who we are, and what we offer, and our relevance. Got to be extremely clear, and there's people don't have much time to, hardly a few seconds to see things. So it's extremely clear. So marketing is, in my view, much more relevant compared to pre-pandemic days. That's my view. So we think we've cleared the questions. There are about 4 or 5 questions. Some have been answered through the chat already. Thanks for answering that. Thanks to the panelists for answering that. So we'll continue with the panel discussion questions. We'll go for another couple of points. Any other questions? Please do type it. We do have some time left for the Q&A as well. So on Dean Fernando, the question to, again, a very specific question. Now, institutions being some institutions challenged by lack of resources for various reasons, lack of teaching resources today compared to what it was last year or a couple of years back. But how do you how do you address those challenges? Okay? What are the typical challenges? Got lesser resources today, but we want to change things and we want to move forward. How do you what trends do you see? How are institutions coping with that? It's all about prioritization, right? Things are moving forward. You got to set up. I was just trying to see if I can get your thoughts on that aspect of prioritization and focus, and some examples.
I'll go back to my answer earlier, because as education institution, it really boils down to how you provide the education that your customers are looking for. And I think that if you were able to address that aspect, all the answers to your question will just come in. If I wanted to continue providing quality education or effective learning, to the students, then I have to adapt to these challenges, and so I need technology. So I need to invest in technology, and so I need to prioritize my spending on technology. So I think you're right there, Swami, that it's all about being strategic, being also prioritizing what the school needs to thrive, because we cannot just, I would say that as much as our customers are affected, so is our university. We are investing on new technologies, so that's why money are also, going out. So that's why we have to make sure that we still put enough attention to prioritization of the operation of the university, but at the same time, not compromising the quality of teaching and learning delivered to the students. So I think that's the heart of it.
Yeah, I think that problem always exists.
Yeah.
Continue to exist. It's just that it's in a different shape today. So that I think we shouldn't see that as a bottleneck, but then just continue to do what we always have done: prioritize, focus. What you want to pick, just keep going forward with whatever resources you do have. So with that, we'll go to the next poll question, again related to one of the questions from the audience. Can I have the poll question number 4, please? Yeah. So let me read that out for the audience. What should institutions invest in to emerge successful in the shift to online learning? Marketing and online recruitment of students. We talked about that quite a bit. Student retention, we again covered that. A good part of today's session was around retaining the students. Digital transformation in teaching, learning, and administration, and academic transformation. We touched about all these 4 points. It's all about what's the emphasis. So we're just trying to get all of them are important, but there must be something that you're leaning towards. So you can make your choice, and I'm sure that's more relevant to where you are from and which part of the world you are and what you're doing. It's relevant to that. So make your choice. Let's see what you're leaning towards, but all 4 are important. The purpose of the question. Yeah.
Swami, yet another question. What is the ideal budget for?
Can we get the poll results? Can we see that, please, and then continue? Is that okay, Caroline? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is connected to whatever the poll question is. So I thought.
Sure. So we have about 72% digital transformation in teaching, learning. I think expected answer. So that's where we're all leaning towards. But there's we can't market without transforming our methodology. So the first things come first. Really glad to see that kind of response. First things first, get digital, be able to deliver that online experience, be confident about it, and then you market it. If you start marketing it, far too ahead, without clarity on what you are, what's your new role, what you're targeting, then that's going to be a challenge. So that's really the right emphasis. That's my opinion. Let's look at the response, Carolyn. What were you pointing?
There are a couple of questions from the audience. The first one is, what is the ideal budget for marketing educational institutions? And the second one is from Dr. Niranjan. Will the industry internship trainings for all stream of students create interest in online classes?
So we'll take it one at a time.
Yeah. What's the ideal budget for marketing educational institutions?
Is there an? I'm not sure. I can see.
It's a Q&A. You can check in the Q&A as well.
Anyway, I heard the question. I'm not able to see it in the Q&A, but I heard the question. What is the marketing? What's the marketing?
Ideal budget. Budget. Yeah.
Any thoughts? I think Carolyn can share from an IT perspective what would be an ideal budget from an IT, but that's a completely different field. Any thoughts from Alan or from Dean Fernando? What's a typical marketing budget in schools?
I don't have idea actually.
Okay.
I also don't have an idea. I guess we're fortunate we have equity.
Sure. Say that again, Alan.
I guess we are fortunate because the university has equity already. I mean,
sure. Excellent. So I think there's a lot of emphasis and on that. Carolyn, what are your thoughts on from an
it depends on the revenues and the focus of that particular institution. Typically, how much of students they want to attract, how much they want to spend in terms of the revenue to the amount of budget they want to keep. Maybe 5 to 8% in an IT, typically in a product company, 5 to 8% is what we keep. So I am not exactly sure of how much an educational institution can put that money on, Swami.
Yeah, what the most important thing there is the business model and what are your goals? Then that is got to be backed up with a marketing budget.
Okay, can I just add one more thing?
Yes, please.
Marketing, as I said earlier, it's cheaper now. Before you have to travel, you have to go to specific locations for you to market. But now, as I said earlier, if you if you have a marketing team, I think you just have to make sure that the team is equipped with graphic artists, the usual requirements for you to upload something online. That would do it. Because I think there's not so much. I don't know. It could be part of the existing marketing team. You don't have to spend so much about it. I think it's about upgrading the skills of your marketing team in terms of digital way of doing it. So in a way, it's cheaper because you don't have to travel anymore. You just have to upgrade their skills and make sure that they have good graphic skills and upload it in your Facebook page. That's it.
I fully second that, Dean Fernando. Running Camo, we find it a lot cheaper now, to do stuff. So we don't have to. There's no travel budgets. So many other things have been cut down. But what's most important is clarity on what you are. Clarity on what you are. Then what you want to target. Then it's really cheap to market today. That's been our experience at least from campus.
Yeah. That's basically identifying where your potential students are and what are the programs you offer, and keep the message very clear and attract them and create that pool of inbound, prospective students for the institution. I think that would work. We have another question from Dr. Niranjan. Will the industry internship trainings for all streams of students create interest in online classes?
Okay. I would like to get Alan's thought on that question, but let me just sort of slightly break that question down as per my understanding. If you relate to one of the poll questions, lack of interest in online classes, students are not interested. Now, would industry internship training, the typical internships, bring an interest in online classes, sort of giving, can you go for internship trainings, probably online? Will that generate an interest? Yes, that's the question. Any thoughts on that, Alan?
I'm actually not clear about the question. Can Dr. Niranjan say more about the question?
Dr. Niranjan, would you like to elaborate on that question?
you can just type a little bit more detail. If you could just add a bit more detail to the question, is industry internship? Are you alluding to whether that can be an replacement of or additional online internship sessions would make the students more interested? If you could just type a few more while we go on with the session, if you can type a few more points, we can see if we can answer that. Right. Can we have the next poll question, please? Meanwhile, that question number 6. Sorry, question number 5. Sorry, question number 5. Yeah, what's the role of Edtech solutions now in education? Okay. So we talked about, is it just a basic infrastructure now, or a primary medium of for curriculum delivery and administration, and it's just an optional tool for online education? How do you see it? So we all know it's got a role today, but where would you place education technology? We also had Dennis talk about the expected consumption and where it is today, but it'll be interesting to see how your responses connect with that. Can you have the answers on that, please? Yeah. So it's about the primary. Again, that's good. People are seeing it as the primary medium. So Dennis, you should be able to see more consumption. People are seeing it that way. At some point, it's going to catch up. It's all going to catch up, and that means a lot to us as well at Camo, because it's certainly we've been not busier today. Probably the working hours and the resource requirements, everything sort of at least doubled, post over the last 18 months. So the demand in terms of support and number of users, the volume of the time online, everything's increased at least 100% for us. So that should be, I think that sort of relates to how our experience, the poll question response relates to our experience, and soon it will sort of catch up to what you're thinking, Dennis. So with that, we've come to the end of the panel discussion and the Q&A. So thank you. I'd like to take the opportunity now to thank all the panelists, Alan, Dean Fernando, and Dennis for participating and sharing your insight. I'm sure it's quite useful for the audience. And I also take the opportunity to thank the audience for participating in the session and interacting with us. Thank you very much, and I hope the session has been useful to you. Thank you. So with that, I sign off and hand over to Francis.
Yeah. So thank you, Swami. Thank you, and again, thank you everyone for joining in the this webinar discussion. Just to summarize, I won't go through lots of discussion, lots of topics that was discussed. Really interesting from an IT perspective. The likes of Alan and Dennis, how they shared, the challenges of this new times or this, I guess, this new normal thing that we have adopted. Of course, from an educational point of view, how we can all adapt. The bottom line is there is a new normal now, and we have to adapt to the changes. And I believe that the institutions have adapted to that from a marketing's point of view, to a technology's point of view, and of course the processes. So before we let go of everyone, again, I'd like to thank everyone for chiming into the webinar. To Alex, Fernando, to Alan, Borja, yes, and Dennis, Maxaho from AWS. Thank you, sir. But before we end this this session, I'd like to show a Cindy. Can you put in a video of what Camo is all about, and yeah, display the video.
Can we launch the last two poll questions, please?
Yeah. There you go. Yep. Do we still have some? Yeah. Do we have a little more time? Yes. Well, it's
Caroline,
almost at the top. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Top of
actually
the
gonna pop up after we end the webinar session as a post-event survey.
All right. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon or morning or evening. And again, please stay safe and please enjoy the rest of the day. Goodbye, everyone, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Francis.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Alan.
Mayor, there are no significant